1929 versus 2029. Hey everybody, Scott Walters. Buckle up, strap in. I got a hard-hitting pull, no punches, no sugarcoating it, no rainbows, no sunshine. Just going to give it to you and give it to you straight. We got a good one to unpackage today. Buckle up, strap in, hold on to your hats and glasses as we blow the lid off the U.S. economy and the U.S. housing market. Insanity, this stuff, right? You can't dream this stuff up. It's like living in an episode of The Twilight Zone. If you're new, please subscribe. Subscribe right away. Never been a more important time in history to get centered and surrounded with like-minded people. Iron will sharpen iron. Aren't you glad you're awake right about now? Banking system failures starting to transpire. And this is a little bit concerning on, well, many levels, really. But number one, for me personally, what comes to mind, contagion. We've talked about this before. In previous bubbles, we didn't have contagion to deal with. We didn't have mass media the way we have it today. Good news travels fast, bad news travels faster. And I really want to do my best to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. But I understand that the waters we're swimming in now are very much shark infested. So we really need to ring the bell and sound the alarm and raise awareness and let people know the biggest artificially created bubble ever produced in history will have a blowback. And we're experiencing that blowback now in spectacular fashion. So we don't need to go too much into a lot of the specifics. I think really what I wanted to communicate today is the percentage of likelihood that we're going to hit another recession. I think a recession is now pretty much guaranteed. I know for a lot of us, we continue to want to pull from the Great Recession, the 2008 era, which was just a recessionary level of a downturn. And while severe and the housing market took a massive hit, that bubble was not as big as the current housing bubble we're in now. And so we always want to utilize the housing market to gauge the health and the fitness of the U.S. economy, because if we lose the housing market, and it's not if, it's always when, because it's always happened over time, booms and busts. So it's no longer if, it's purely when. And I know a lot of people just don't, they can't wrap their head around that because they've never lived through a bust cycle before. And it's very fun to live through a boom cycle, especially when it's the free money, helicopter money effect that was generated through stimulus. And it's not for the crisis we're not talking today. But the economy just couldn't tolerate that kind of money injections, the wealth effect, the casino climate, the Kool-Aid drinking. So we've reported many times here, a lot of the things that we run with in terms of how we should be thinking is be fearful when others are greedy when others are fearful. So when greed swept these markets, for a lot of us, we took a step back and said, well, I think we'll just watch this one play out and just be cautious. And especially when it comes to real estate, you don't necessarily get hurt when you buy, you get hurt when you sell. And I think a lot of people are going to be forced to market, a lot of people running for the exits. But one of the things I really wanted to address today is this new Silicon Valley Bank, 13th biggest bank in the world now, is done. They're defaulting and they're just going belly up. And so, they're experiencing bank runs. And so this is the first domino to fall. And I would anticipate other banks are probably going to experience similar situations. But my bigger fear in this one is the panic that I know for you, I've thought about it. Have you thought about it? Leave it in the comments below if you've already thought about it. Like, should I start pulling cash out of my bank? And the realities are, I don't know about you, but even when I do withdraw cash from my bank account, which I kind of do on a regular basis, just a little bit at a time, I already feel like there's a little resistance from the bank itself, like anytime you ask for cash. And I think the banks are all nervous right now about people just panicking and doing bank runs and trying to get their cash out. And possibly rightfully so. And so I think it's very important, of course, to always just have however much cash on hand you can tolerate, just in case there's ever a temporary shutdown of a bank, the grid, whatever. I mean, it should be part of our prepping right now. And while I'm not a huge prepper, I'm probably a lot bigger of a prepper than many. I've got survival gear. I've got emergency equipment. I've got emergency food. I've got cash. I got some stuff just to feel like, okay, well, at least I'm not completely exposed right now if and when something like this was to happen. But the bigger issue that I'm having currently right now, and when I first came to YouTube not too long ago, I started kind of ringing the bell, sounding the alarm, raising awareness, letting people know that we we would have blowback from the stimulus and the dust would settle. We will pay the piper. And part of the things that I remember reporting on as I continue to learn about economics and everything going on so I can help you guys the best of my ability and my customers just make smart choices is cycles, the booms and bust cycles. And historically, depressionary levels have cycled throughout time approximately every 100 years. I believe the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the Great Depression, which was followed by World War II. And we have a lot of political strain right now. We're in peace times, but because I think this one's a little different because this was pandemic driven. The war that we're fighting now was really the crisis, the pandemic. That was the war, and we try to print our way out of it. And it was really short-sighted on one hand. I really don't know why the government decided to overprint and overstimulate the economy. It was totally counterproductive, creating the wealth effect, run-ups in real estate. And that's going to lead the charge, I think, in this one. When you overstimulate the housing market, it has the ability just being the knockout blow. I mean, it's like a vacuum. It just takes jobs along families. Everybody gets sucked up in a housing crash. So you might be able to tolerate some blowback, but if and when we lose the housing market, which historically we know we will at some point, it now just becomes when and at what level. So the realities are, and I've reported on this before, we are in the 100-year depression cycle. So it's unleashed. If it was to come in year 100, it's 2029, we're in another depression. And mathematically, I believe that if we're going to end up in a depressionary level of a downturn, I believe 1929 is probably, we're in the throes of another great depressionary time for the country. And it's just mathematics, historical data, whatever you want to call it. That's the waters we're now swimming in today. I don't know how many more news events we can have before it completely becomes a black swan left field event that creates a race to the bottom. But even if we don't get a black swan, if we don't have any more news events of bank failures, I don't believe there's any saving this one. I don't believe a soft landing is even possible. And for that narrative to ever have been spread, like inflation is transitory, as soon as the nation reopens, these kinks are just going to work themselves out like magic. Well, of course they couldn't. You overheated. It's an everything bubble. Every asset class got overheated. And the U.S. housing market was the one that overheated the most. And so like I was about to say, I think for a lot of us right now, and that's always been my job here, this is a real estate guy, is to let you know anytime we're looking at properties right now, my main advice has always been, just examine that property's rent range and make sure if you're carrying a mortgage on it, even at today's interest rate, we want high interest rates. We need these high interest rates. Everybody's so hung up on mortgage interest rates that they feel like they have to hurry up. No, I mean, back in the 80s, we had 20% interest rates and properties still penciled out to cash flow. We need interest rates to calm these markets down, which they're going to do. My fear at this point is when you start getting news of banks failing, it could cause contagion and just people starting to panic and just go to their banks and start pulling out cash, and then the dominoes start to fall a little faster than they may have had we not got that contagion to do what it's going to do. So right now, I believe, just based on what we've talked about today, we are probably headed at minimum a recession. I think we're already in a recession. It just hasn't been officially announced because job growth continues to keep the government from admitting the truth, because there's that one last single piece of data but that's just all reopening false data because of a reopening in service sectors hiring while other companies firing. It's all got to kind of shake itself out. If we can't stop it at the recessionary level of a downturn, which I believe is, we're already in it, it's guaranteed. The U.S. savings rate, all-time low, U.S. debt, all-time high. I mean, those two metrics alone are just the writing on the wall. When people have run out of money and the stimulus is being removed and they're now relying on credit cards to bridge the gap, that is just a ticking clock that's eventually going to deliver its knockout blow. The air is being let out. We're going to see the dominoes start to fall. And it pains me to say that because as somebody who lived through the Great Recession and suffered some of that blowback, knowing I had some sleepless nights. And I know as a salesman, I've told you, once you make up your mind to buy, you are buying. The sky could be falling unless you've lived through these things before, or you're staying connected with people that are trying to keep you straight. I remember people warning me. I just didn't listen in the last one. That's why I've always said, I don't regret having gone through that now. But if I was to go do the same thing over, expecting a different result in another bubble, that would be the definition of insanity. In final thoughts, I come to you as a friend, as a content creator. Somebody wants to see you not only win in real estate, win in life. We're in the 100-year depression cycle, my friends, and it's starting to do a lot of rhyming of the Great Depression. And just those two things alone have my full attention. And I've always been pretty guarded about the messages I continue to communicate here because I like to just kind of use the housing market because I know it's a polarizing topic that we're all interested in. And I know the path to wealth will be in real estate. And I know there's plenty of areas in the country right now that do pencil out, but there's a lot of parts of the country that just aren't penciling out right now. So I think we got to be very careful moving forward. Expect the unexpected. Prepare for the worst. Hope for the best. Come out somewhere in the middle. Don't be that deer in the headlights, unable to operate efficiently within this one. Unfortunately, the majority of Americans now, over half, are living paycheck to paycheck, and even the high wage earners. So I just don't know if there's a whole lot of false hope that I can put on an economy sustaining itself when the kind of damage we inflicted on it, and now it's starting to come to fruition. It's starting to show those cracks in a big, big way. Personally, I don't believe there's reason to be panicked, because if you halfway expect this, you're going to be able to operate within it. It's going to be those people that don't watch videos like this, that haven't heard it communicated in a way that it's not necessarily scare tactics, but just raising awareness and ringing the bell and letting people know we will have blowback, the dust will settle, and we will pay the piper. A big bank just paid the piper in a big way. Stay tuned as we blow the lid off it every step of the way, because it's not only what we need, it's in fact what we deserve. If you appreciate the content, I want to humbly ask you to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Social media links in the description of this video if you'd like to contact me there, along with links to channels I've appeared on I think you might enjoy. If you need help buying or selling real estate here in America, I have the biggest network of top-rated agents in the nation ready to assist you. It'd be our honor and our privilege to do so. Email in the description for you as well. Also, if you're watching from your television set today and you enjoyed this video, I think you're going to love the next video on your screen, and there's an easy subscribe icon for your convenience. As always, thank you for your time. Please go make it count today, and I'll see you on the next video.